My name is Elena Whitmore, and the night I died is a part of me that I can never forget. It happened on April 17th, 2016, a date that I will always remember. I lived in a peaceful town, a place where neighbors greeted each other with a smile, and everyone seemed to know everyone else. Maplewood, a quiet little place where the days felt like a gentle breeze, was where I called home. My life had always been simple. I worked as a bookstore manager, surrounded by the comforting scent of old pages, ink, and the soft rustle of books being gently turned. There was something calming about the world of literature. It was where I found my peace. Outside of work, my life was equally tranquil. I had a small garden that I lovingly tended, watching the flowers bloom season after season, and a little orange tabby named Oliver, who had been by my side for years. His purring was a constant companion, and his green eyes always seemed to know when I needed comfort. One of my closest friends was Maggie. We had known each other for years, and though we didn't see eye to eye on everything, we shared a bond that felt unbreakable. Maggie was deeply devout, a passionate follower of Jesus, and she had always tried to convince me that I needed to accept Christ into my life. Without him, she often said, "You're lost." I appreciated her concern, but something about her belief never fully resonated with me. I had always believed in God, but I couldn't understand why he would condemn people who followed a different faith. It seemed so unfair. Maggie would quote Bible verses, telling me that Jesus was the only way to heaven. But to me, the idea felt too harsh, too rigid. We would often have debates about religion and other topics like LGBTQ+ issues, where our differences became more apparent. Maggie, with all her conviction, believed that homosexuality was a sin, while I believed love was love, and that no one should be judged for who they loved. Despite our differences, we were close, sharing countless conversations, meals, and many moments of laughter. One evening, Maggie and I sat on my porch, sipping tea as the sun began to dip below the horizon. The air was fragrant with lilacs, and Oliver was curled up next to me, purring softly. Maggie, as she often did, brought up my faith, her voice filled with concern. "Elena, I just don't want you to be lost," she said, her eyes pleading. I smiled at her, trying to reassure her. "God knows my heart, Maggie," I said. "I don't believe he would judge me so harshly." She sighed and shook her head. There was a sadness in her eyes that I couldn't shake. But little did I know, that was the last peaceful moment I would have before everything changed. Later that night, feeling restless and alone, I found myself turning to something that had always been a way to relax, something I had never seen as harmful. But this time was different. As I reached the peak of pleasure, a searing pain exploded in my chest. It was as if a fist had gripped my heart, squeezing tighter with each passing second. My breath caught in my throat, my vision blurred, and I felt my body begin to convulse. The terror that coursed through me was indescribable. I realized what was happening. My heart was failing. I tried to move, to grab my phone, but my body refused to obey. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, my fingers twitching helplessly. The last thing I saw was Oliver, his eyes wide with fear, meowing desperately as I slipped away into darkness. And then there was nothing. No sound, no light, no time. Just overwhelming, suffocating emptiness. I couldn't even tell if I was still me. Then, from the darkness, a faint light appeared, no bigger than a pinprick. It pulsed gently, drawing me toward it, and I felt myself moving toward it with not irresistible force. My soul seemed to be pulled closer and closer, as if the light were calling to me, reeling me in. As I drifted toward it, the light grew, expanding in size until it was bright and warm, but it didn't burn. It filled me with a sense of peace, of love, a sensation I had never known before. Every ounce of fear, doubt, and sadness that had plagued me in my life seemed to vanish. There was only love, not overwhelming, pure love that enveloped me like nothing I had ever felt. Suddenly, I heard a voice, not from outside of me, but from within, deep in my soul. It wasn't just sound, it was a presence. "Welcome, Elena," The voice said, gentle but filled with unimaginable power. And I knew, without a doubt, that I was standing before God. If you're feeling touched by this story, don't forget to comment with your name and city below, and you might just receive a special message in the next video. We'd love to hear from you and celebrate this journey of faith together as part of our growing community. And if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on what's next. Together, we'll continue this journey. When I opened my eyes, I was back. The familiar walls of my living room surrounded me, but everything felt different. The air was thick, charged with a presence I couldn't fully explain. My body ached, my chest burning with the remnants of the pain I had just experienced. Oliver was still there, curled up beside me, his green eyes staring into mine as if he knew something I didn't. I couldn't make sense of what had just happened. Had I really died? Was it a dream? The memories of the light, the voice, the overwhelming love and fear, they all flooded back to me like waves crashing over my consciousness. But nothing could prepare me for what I was about to understand. For hours, I lay there, trying to piece together the fragments of my experience. I could still feel the light's warmth, the weight of God's voice reverberating in my soul. But it was more than just a feeling. It was a truth that pressed against my chest, demanding to be understood. That night, I had learned the most profound lesson of my life, that my choices, every small decision, every indulgence, every moment of weakness, had consequences. The life I had lived, the way I had chosen to walk my path, wasn't as innocent as I had thought. God's words echoed in my mind, "The enemy has led you astray." Those words haunted me. I had always thought of myself as a good person, someone who did no harm, who tried to do right by others. But in the light of the truth, I saw my mistakes clearly. I had always justified my actions, telling myself that they were harmless. It was just a way to relieve stress. It didn't hurt anyone. But in that moment before God, I saw it for what it truly was, a doorway to darkness, not invitation I had welcomed without realizing the weight of it. The demons, those twisted figures in my room, the ones I had thought were only in my mind, they were real. And they weren't just watching. They were whispering to me, leading me further and further away from the light I now understood. It wasn't just about one moment of weakness, one choice I had made. It was about everything I had allowed into my life. The enemy doesn't need grand gestures to claim a soul. It works through subtlety, through the things we think are small, harmless, or natural. That was the deception, the lie that I had been living under. As I sat there, trying to process it all, I felt a deep sorrow wash over me. God's voice had been clear, filled with both comfort and sorrow. Sin is never harmless, he had said. Every small act of disobedience opens a door, allowing the enemy to take hold. The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy blanket. The truth was clear. Every decision I made had consequences. Every action had a ripple effect that reached beyond what I could see. But there was more. God didn't just speak of the darkness that I had allowed into my life. He also spoke of the hope that remained. There is still time, he said, but you must choose it. That was the moment everything changed for me. It wasn't just about understanding my past. It was about what I would do with that understanding moving forward. I had been given a glimpse of truth, a chance to change. But the path before me was no longer clear. The darkness still loomed, waiting to pull me back into its grasp. I knew that I couldn't go back to my old life. The choice was mine. Would I surrender my life to God, or would I continue to walk down a path of deception? It was a decision I couldn't delay. And yet, even as I knew what I had to do, a part of me resisted. The weight of everything I had believed, everything I had lived for, was suddenly so much harder to carry. But the truth was undeniable. There was no turning back now. The days following that night were a blur, each one filled with a mixture of confusion, fear, and a longing for something I couldn't quite define. I tried to carry on with my usual routine, but it felt as though the world had shifted beneath my feet. Every corner of my life was now bathed in the light of a new understanding. Nothing felt the same, and yet I was still me. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I tried to dismiss the thoughts that plagued me, the sense that I was being called to something greater, but I couldn't. It was as if a veil had been lifted from my eyes. The life I had once lived, the choices I had made, all suddenly seemed so distant, like a shadow that no longer belonged to me. I had always known there was something missing, a sense of purpose that I could never quite reach, no matter how many books I read or how many hours I spent in quiet solitude. But now I realized it wasn't about finding meaning in the things of this world. It was about surrendering to the truth that had been before me all along. God's voice had told me that I had been searching my whole life, but I had been deceived. And now, the truth stood before me, as clear and undeniable as the sun in the sky. The path I had been walking was not the path that would lead me to peace, to fulfillment, to the salvation I longed for. It was a path of darkness, disguised in the guise of independence and self-sufficiency. And now I had to make a choice. I couldn't stay in the place I had been anymore. The world I had known was no longer enough. It had never been enough. I had been fooling myself into believing that I could navigate life alone, that my good intentions would be enough to get me through. But now, I understood that it wasn't my goodness that mattered. It was my heart, my willingness to accept the truth, to surrender myself completely to God's will. The weight of that realization was almost too much to bear. But I knew it was the only way forward. I had been given a second chance, a gift I could never repay. I could no longer ignore the call, no longer turn a blind eye to the truth that had been set before me. The first step was the hardest. It meant leaving behind everything I had once believed, everything that had shaped me into the person I thought I was. I had to let go of the comforting illusions that had kept me safe, the pride that had kept me distant from the truth. But the more I sought God, the more I understood. The more I listened, the clearer my purpose became. It wasn't about finding my own way anymore. It was about following His. It was about surrendering my life, my heart, my will to His guidance, knowing that in doing so, I would find peace and purpose far beyond anything I could have imagined. But even in this newfound clarity, the world around me didn't change. People didn't suddenly understand. Maggie, my dear friend, struggled to accept the shift in me. She couldn't understand why I had rejected the beliefs we once shared, why I had embraced a faith that seemed so old-fashioned to her. She questioned my decision, told me I was lost, just as she had in the past. It hurt to lose her, to realize that we no longer walked the same path. But I knew that my choice was not about rejecting her. It was about accepting the truth I had been blind to for so long. The truth was that I could no longer stay in the comfort of old beliefs, in the safety of what I had known. I had to move forward, even if it meant walking alone. And that was where my true journey began. As the days passed, I found myself feeling torn. The transformation that was taking place inside me was profound, yet it was not without its challenges. I had been given a glimpse of the truth, a vision of God's love and the path that lay before me, but the road ahead was not an easy one. The temptation to return to my old ways lingered like a shadow, reminding me of the comfort I once knew. It was so tempting to stay in the familiar, to retreat into the life I had always known. But deep inside, I knew that I couldn't. Not anymore. Every day, I could feel God calling me deeper, urging me to let go of the past and to embrace the life He had planned for me. But letting go was hard. Maggie, as much as I loved her, didn't understand. Our conversations had become strained, our friendship tested by the choices I had made. She would often tell me that I was too far gone, that I was losing my way. And though I could feel her pain and frustration, I knew that I couldn't let her hold me back. This was my journey, not hers. I began to feel the weight of the decision I had made. It wasn't just about leaving behind my old life. It was about stepping into something new, something unknown. I had to trust that God would lead me, that He would guide me even when I couldn't see the way. It was a leap of faith, one that required surrender, humility, and courage. And that was when I felt the pull to change, not just in my heart, but in my actions, in the way I lived my life. It wasn't enough to just believe. I had to show it. I had to be transformed from the inside out, to let go of the old Elena and embrace the woman God was calling me to be. I felt a deep urgency, a desire to share what I had experienced with others. I couldn't keep the truth to myself, not after everything I had seen, everything I had learned. There were so many others who, like me, were lost in the darkness, deceived by the world and its false promises. And I had been given a second chance to help them, to show them the light that I had found. But this journey was not just about others. It was about me, about my own spiritual growth. I knew that God had a purpose for my life, a mission He was calling me to fulfill. And I was determined to walk that path, no matter how difficult it seemed. The weight of that mission was not light. But as I prayed, as I sought God with all my heart, I began to feel His presence in a way I had never known before. His peace, His love, His guidance, they filled me with strength. I knew that I wasn't alone, that He was with me every step of the way. The more I surrendered to Him, the more I felt the chains of my past fall away. I could feel the transformation taking place, not just in my heart, but in my entire life. And though I knew there was still much work to be done, I also knew that I was on the right path. God's voice echoed in my heart, reminding me that this was just the beginning. The journey was long, but it was worth it. I had to keep moving forward, keep trusting, keep surrendering. And as I did, I knew that I was becoming the person He had always intended for me to be. If you're watching this and feeling moved by this journey, we would love to hear from you. Comment below with your name and city, and in the next video, we'll give you a special shout out. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel too, so we can continue walking this path together as a community. We're so grateful to have you with us on this incredible journey. The days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, I found myself wrestling with the changes inside me. Every decision, every choice seemed to carry so much more weight now. I had felt God's love, His mercy, and His call, but the reality of what that meant was more daunting than I had ever imagined. It wasn't just about believing anymore. It was about living that belief every single day. The life I had known, the life I had spent so many years building, suddenly seemed like a distant memory, a dream I could no longer grasp. People around me continued with their lives, blissfully unaware of the shift that had occurred in my heart. But I couldn't pretend anymore. The old Elena, the one who had been so comfortable in her independence and self-sufficiency, no longer existed. It wasn't that I didn't miss her sometimes. The woman who had lived in the comfort of routine, the one who had felt secure in her own understanding of the world. But I knew I couldn't go back. I couldn't allow myself to slip back into that life, into the illusion that I could handle things on my own. That path had led me nowhere. What had once felt like freedom now felt like a trap. It was the same trap I had been stuck in for so long, convinced that I was in control, convinced that I was enough. But now I realized the truth. I wasn't enough on my own. And that realization was both terrifying and liberating. I began to understand what it meant to surrender, to truly give up my own will and let God lead me. But surrender wasn't easy. It meant letting go of everything I had once held dear, everything that had defined me. It meant stepping into the unknown, walking a path I couldn't see clearly, and trusting that God would guide me. At times, I felt like I was stumbling in the dark, unsure of what the next step would bring. But then, in the quiet moments, I felt His presence, the peace that passes all understanding. It was a peace that didn't come from knowing the answers, but from knowing that He was with me, that He had a plan for my life, and that I didn't have to carry the burden alone. I could feel my faith growing, but so was the struggle. The enemy didn't let go easily. I still faced temptation, still felt the pull of the world trying to drag me back. The voices of doubt, of fear, still whispered in my ear, trying to convince me that this path wasn't worth it. But each time, I pushed back, relying on God's strength, on the truth that I had learned. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick. Transformation takes time. But each day, I grew a little stronger, a little more certain of the path I was on. And with each small victory, I felt more like the person God was calling me to be. But I knew the journey wasn't over. It wasn't a one-time decision. It was a daily choice to follow Him, to trust him, and to surrender to his will. There would be days when I would stumble, days when I would doubt. But I had learned that his grace was sufficient, and that as long as I kept moving forward, he would be with me, guiding me every step of the way. As the months passed, I found myself standing at a crossroads, unsure of what to do next. The journey I had embarked upon wasn't easy, and it wasn't one that could be measured by quick fixes or immediate results. No, this journey was about transformation, a deep, spiritual renewal that would take time, patience, and unwavering faith. In the midst of this inner change, I had begun to see the world around me differently. People, places, experiences, everything seemed to be moving in a rhythm I couldn't always understand, yet everything was connected in ways that I could never have imagined before. It was as if the veil that had once separated me from the deeper truths of life was being slowly lifted, allowing me to see with new eyes. And it wasn't just about what I had seen in that moment before God, in that powerful, life-changing vision. It was about what he was showing me now in the everyday moments, the seemingly small things that I had once overlooked. The kindness of a stranger, the beauty of nature, the love of family. These were no longer just passing details of life. They were gifts, each one a reflection of the Creator's love and presence. But even with this newfound awareness, I found myself questioning my place in all of this. How could I possibly share this with others? How could I take something so personal, so intimate, and make it relevant to the world around me? I had spent so much of my life feeling disconnected, thinking that I was too ordinary, too insignificant to make any real difference. But now I knew better. God had called me to share this truth, this experience, not for my own glory, but to help others see the light that had been revealed to me. There was not urgency in my heart, a desire to reach out to others who were still trapped in darkness, still lost in their own struggles, as I once had been. I knew there were people who needed to hear this message, who needed to know that change was possible, that redemption was real, and that it was never too late to turn toward the light. It wasn't about me, about what I had done, but about the power of God's grace and the transformation it could bring to anyone who was willing to surrender. It was about helping others find the hope and peace that had changed my life, about showing them that there was another way, a better way. As I thought about the people I could reach, the hearts I could touch, I felt a sense of purpose rise up within me. This wasn't just about sharing a story, it was about sparking a movement of people who were ready to leave behind the lies and the darkness and step into the light of truth. And so, I knew I had to keep going. I had to keep sharing, keep speaking, and keep encouraging others to take that first step, just as I had. It was no longer an option, it was a calling. But I also knew that I couldn't do it alone. That's why I'm asking you, my community, to join me. If this message has touched your heart in any way, if you believe in the power of transformation and the hope that God offers, I invite you to be a part of this journey with me. Your support, your likes, your comments, those simple acts mean more than you can imagine. We don't do this for money. We do it because we are passionate about helping others, about spreading the message of hope, faith, and love. Your likes, your subscriptions, and your comments help us continue to share this truth with as many people as possible. They help us build this community, this family of believers who are walking this path together. If you haven't already, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Every like, every subscription helps us spread this message further. And together, we can reach more people, change more lives, and create a community built on faith, hope, and love. Thank you for being a part of this, for being a part of the journey. Let's continue walking this path together. The days after that final decision felt like a breath of fresh air. The burden of doubt, the weight of past choices, all seemed to lift from my shoulders as I embraced the new life before me. Every step I took in faith felt lighter than the one before. Still, the journey was not easy, and there were moments of uncertainty. But I knew, deep within my heart, that I was finally on the right path. The old Elena, the one who had sought validation in the wrong places, the one who had allowed herself to be deceived by the world, was gone. What remained was someone entirely new, someone who had been reborn in the light of God's love. But this new life came with its own set of challenges. each one an opportunity to grow, to trust, and to walk even closer with God. I found myself surrounded by people who didn't fully understand my transformation. Some tried to pull me back to the old ways, to the comfortable lies that I had once believed. But I stood firm. I knew the truth now, and I would never let go of it again. I would not let fear or doubt pull me back into darkness. With every moment, I felt a deeper connection to God. His presence was now a constant in my life, guiding me, comforting me, and empowering me to walk this path with courage and strength. I no longer felt lost, and I no longer felt alone. His love surrounded me, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. But freedom didn't mean the absence of challenges. It meant facing them head-on, knowing that God was with me through it all. It meant standing firm in the truth, even when the world tried to pull me away. It meant continuing to grow, continuing to be transformed, and continuing to share what I had learned with others. I had been given a second chance, a life transformed by grace. And now, it was my mission to help others experience the same. I couldn't keep this truth to myself. It had to be shared. There were so many people out there who were lost, who were searching for meaning and purpose, just as I had once been. And I knew that God was calling me to be a part of their journey, to help them find the hope, peace, and love that I had found. And now, I'm inviting you to continue this journey with me. If this story has touched your heart, if you feel that God is calling you to something more, I encourage you to watch the next video. It will be a revelation in your life, something that you won't want to miss. Just click on the video that's appearing on your screen and let God continue to guide you on this path of transformation. And before you go, don't forget to like this video and comment Amen below. When you do, you're not only joining us in faith, but continuing to be blessed in your own journey. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a part of this amazing community. May God bless you abundantly.